That's me. All right, I'll start in 1 minute. Supposed to be a big topic. There you go. Good stuff. All right. Oh, noon. Okay, awesome. Excellent. Let's get the session going. There's people coming in. That's great. That's awesome. Alrighty, we'll be talking about copywriting for AI and the advent of what's happening on the arena of computer science and all the drawings and the images from the internet. We specifically have 3 things for this session. In half an hour, we're going to go through. Let me zoom in for you guys right there. What is specifically what is copyright from the point of view of digital art in a very relaxed way, because copyright can be a big topic. We're just going to go through something quick to define copyright for AI. The second one would be how do we artists actually protect the art that you actually put on the internet. You somehow you have to protect it from being scanned or crawled by any AI chatbot and so on. And then the last one will be about how do we not steal from others, right? Using AI, which is the main topic for this little workshop. Again, we'll be here for half an hour. And as I go through the course, you guys can ask any questions, any type on the chat or the Q&A. It is up to you. Alrighty, so AI today, it's a big topic. It's everywhere. Not just in our industries, but it's everywhere. Like in every single sector has been disrupting, from lawyers to even robotics, cooks, mathematicians, engineers, art, which is the surprise for us, and so on. So the thing that's happening is that a lot of the times we have no idea what AI means. It is just essentially something that we see in packages like Photoshop. We see obviously ChatGPT. We see a lot of issues also with AI about how it approaches the artwork. So we're gonna go and take a separate angle perspective on what is AI on this one, and I'm pretty sure that you have never seen this angle, and it's good. That's a good thing. So starting with copyright, there's something about copyright that if you see that image, you can type it in chat. What is this? Who owns that? Right? That's important to know. Who owns this chicken noodle soup? Right? And you see that on the top section of that image, it says kind of like the owner, right? That's how they brand it, the Campbell's chicken noodle soup. And that makes sense. This is their way to define the logo, the way to define the colors, the way to define the can. Like somebody was thinking about how do we design this can for the audience, right? So this is clear that Campbell's owns that can, the trademarks, right? The colors and so on. However, if you now open that other image that I have here, and then the same question is who owns this? You see address, you see the Campbell's logo, the design for that can onto that dress. Who owns it? right? And then this is where it gets pretty tricky in the copyright arena. In the one hand, you have the original one. On the second hand, you have this one that is called transformative work. And that basically means that this work from Andy Warhol, he transformed the original one like so much that now he can own it, right? And it gets very tricky about that because the lawyers would be actually fighting that who owns it. And in bottom line, you would see, well, Andy Warhol may own the dress, but the logo may be from Campbell's, right? So you got to look at those details. On this one, that I'm sure you've seen, is a pretty famous painting from a long, long time ago. It's also by Andy Warhol, and you can see the image. It is Marilyn Monroe. So who owns this? This gets even more tricky because when you see that, who owns that photo, right? Is it Andy Warhol or is it Marilyn Monroe, right? It is her face, right? But at the end, this piece alone, it is owned by Andy Warhol. Incredible. So that would be the ruling, so that you can see how this is being transformed from the original one into the new one, that now all the copyrights, they go into the other new creation, right? So that's why it gets tricky. So keep that in mind for the AI piece, right? And when you go to a Comic-Con and you see this, you know, you're gonna see Spider-Man, you're gonna see Superman, essentially the Marvel characters, and you're gonna see, you know, who owns this? Is it the artist who's drawing it, or is it the in this case the studio? I'm sure you guys know who this is on the image without even mentioning the names. Like, you know who these are. So if you are at a Comic-Con and you're walking as I'd say as a civilian, as a fan, you're gonna see a lot of fan art, right? But if you are in the Comic-Con, I mean, you're one of the artists drawing that fan art, are you allowed to do that? Right? I said, what is the ruling on that? You drew it, but you don't own it, but maybe you do, right? So it gets murky in that. Uh, Bottom line on all these ones is essentially, if you're making money with this, then you're crossing the line for legalities and lawyers battles and all that stuff. So keep that in mind for sure. These are those concepts. So AI transforms the work, and that's the issue. That's what's happening when you see that AI is taking, you know, Studio Ghibli style, right? Or Van Gogh style. Who owns it? Is it really Van Gogh? Is it really Studio Ghibli? And that's why they can't really fight anything, because it's so it's transformed, right? And let me tell you how this works, so you also understand a few things about AI. And remember, the AI, the way that it sees the work is not the same way that we do it with images. Like when you see that, for us would be, oh yeah, that's a black circle. Yeah. But for AI, it's basically numbers. It doesn't see anything else. It may detect the edge somehow, because that's where the numbers ended, right? But this is how computers see basically everything. So there's no distinguishing what's an image from what's a formula, right? It's basically numbers. So this would be an important distinction. So because when you take some artwork and then you transform it into a mathematical number, right? Then there's no more art. There's just numbers for the computer. And so there's no way to trace, you know, what is this number here? It's just a number, right? From 0 to 9, which is the 10 digits, right? So that's important to see that. You've been using Photoshop, I'm guessing, for many, many years. And this is how, again, the computer would perform a Gaussian blur. And then you see it on the right-hand side. That's what we see as humans. And you can see that there's a bit of Gaussian blur on the edges, right? From the center of the image. This is the clearest or sharpest point, and just goes fades into the blur area in a radius way. And this is how the computer sees that, right? So it's at 476, that's sharp, and it starts decreasing into the blurring numbers. So this is pretty remarkable because every time that you scan an image onto your computer, or you use Photoshop, or you use Animate.cc, or Houdini, or Maya, this is essentially what you're working on all the time. You may see shapes, you may see things that you can distinguish, but the computer is always doing that. And it's incredible to see that. So AI is a pretty incredible tool. If you think about it, AI was in the making since the 50s. So it's been 75 years. It is a triumph from civilization to get to the point that we are at, right? It's pretty remarkable to see that. So if I now open a few things, let me show you, like this one, right? And this is pretty important. And this is a bit on the computer science side, but it's important you guys also understand that, right? This is called a kernel. This kernel, it's basically scanning all these points, right? You can see my cursor, and you can see numbers 254, great, it's almost white. 255, that's white. So if I go to black area, okay, that's like 20, right? And then this is how the computer sees all that. And you've seen that in Photoshop a little bit. And then down below, you can see something called the matrix. So that's that blur that we've seen, right? And the blur, the way it happens, and look at that kernel. Right? That's pretty incredible to see that. So understand that every single time you somehow you digitize that image, it is going to be seen by a matrix like this one, right? And then down below, you can see some images and blur and so on, right? Which is pretty nice to understand that. If I open the other one, for you guys to understand also even more. So this is close to what Photoshop may be doing with the filtering the edges, right? You can see we have like a microscope image, and then the AI would be detecting, okay, what's the edge, right? What is that about? And if you pick Einstein on this one, right, look at that. So AI is like really tracing this computer vision, trying to find out where are the edges. It doesn't really know. It's trying to guess. See, why doesn't it find the real edge, which is the human, right? And the hair and all that. It's getting confused with the neck and the eyes and so on. If you get the, that little panda here. Again, it's kind of like trying to find the edge, but this is not really the edge. As a human, that is like this, the edge would be right at the contour, right? So this is the reason that part of the reason that AI is not really good at drawing hands or people walking, as you might have seen, right? Because it doesn't know, like if you change one number, if you change an angle, then it also gets pretty confused, right? AI doesn't really know. And if you have ever seen how AI gets trained, it's almost like if you have kids, it's almost like training or teaching your kid who's 4 years of age, 5 years of age, right? And that's important to see, because how do you teach them something? You teach them by saying, hey, look, here's a dog, right? Here's a person, here's this color, here's this, that. And as soon as you're teaching something that's more like math, you say 1 + 1 is 2, and then that's fine. right? They can do the numbers, well, 2 plus 1 is 3, and so on. And that's great. But as soon as you say, well, this is blue and the other one's purple, well, they have to believe you. You're just pointing at some color saying, well, that is blue, this is purple, right? AI gets trained the same way. So if you see this little, they call it panda on this image, but let's say this little guy right here. If you tell the AI, this is a panda, right? Well, it believes you. If you enter some data, let's say that this would be a grizzly bear or maybe a basketball, and you tell the AI, well, that's a panda, it's going to believe you because it doesn't know, right? It just doesn't know. And to make it even more exciting, if this little panda, you see how he's looking like almost towards the camera? If he rotates his head just slightly to the side, AI wouldn't know that it's a panda anymore because it's new numbers, new mathematics, new algorithms, right? So that's why you have to train the AI. Say, well, yeah, this is a panda. And if he looks in a 3/4 angle, well, that's a panda. And if he looks in a profile angle, well, that is a panda. And if you see the panda from behind, well, that is a panda. So these training sessions are the ones that are, getting all these like data centers and chips from NVIDIA and so on, because training the AI takes time. It's almost like rendering your frames in Houdini or Maya. It can take maybe 5 minutes. It can take a week, right? Just for one image. That's why this is so heavy. So now just know that AI really doesn't know as much until you tell the AI, well, this is what it means. And it's gotta believe you. There you go. So there's a few things also that when AI is scanning, Facebook or Instagram or Google Images, it's just going by the description, right? Like this would be a vehicle, that's a truck, that's a plane, and so on. So it gets to the Studio Ghibli, right? Scans all the Studio Ghibli artwork and say, well, that's a Studio Ghibli. That's the colors, that's the style, that's the numbers that they use. So at MIT, let me show you a couple of things, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They're also mathematicians, as you may know, and they're trying to bring, some sort of like law against AI. They're favoring the artist, and they say, how can we protect that AI from stealing or just grabbing, again, things from Instagram and so on. So this is pretty important, this piece. Let's say that you somehow, as an artist, you drew that circle and it's awesome. That's yours, you own it. If AI scans it, well, then it can just take it, right? It's gonna say, well, that it's owned by Mario, it's orange and gray, right? So what the MIT people are doing is that down below, they now know that if we inject a little bit of noise just around the color, like right here, it has to be subtle that we still see the circle, but we're tricking the AI. So just by adding that noise, the AI is so confused, right? Because now that gray, let's say that was like 60 as a number. Now this one's going to be like 60, 251, and so on. So now the AI, just by adding that, you can protect the artwork, right? That's what MIT it's doing there for you. And this is essentially what AI would look like at the end. Like it just doesn't know. It doesn't know that there's a circle anymore. Right, so how do you do that? So there's a couple of things that MIT is doing, and there's open source software called Nightshade and Glaze. They're free to use. You can get the links on the website, but here's how they work. Right, it's saying MIT technology, right? We're trying to protect the artists from AI scraping their work and so on, right? So this is one, essentially you add the filters. You go and download first the software that they have here. It's called Nightshade. And then you somehow tweak it just to get that finishing that I was showing on this one. They call that the poison image. So you upload the work to the software before you put it up on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever you place you put the images, right? And then you poise the image by doing that. The other initiative would be it's called Glaze. It's a different way of adding noise. You can see it right here. I was adding certain noise that humans can understand what this is, but the AI would be tripping without knowing what that is. Wouldn't know that's an eye, that's a nose, that's a face, right? Again, you can access the websites. This is a whole different demo. Just telling you the resource, right? So you go there, you download it. It's free. It's open source. It has a bit of an explanation. They even have a video on how to use it, right? Something somewhere right here. So you have, there you go. So these are the scientists that are doing all that stuff. They know that I'm adding some noise. There's a video, you can see the video. Watch it later on, and this is what's telling you. This one has noise, glazed, and you can't really tell with the human eye, but it's enough for the AI to have no idea what this is. And that's the whole point. So now you guys know how to protect that. All right, moving on. So that's all. That's all the section how AI sees the artwork. I think about that. It's pretty important because it brings you a new perspective, knowing that it's at the end, it's just numbers for the AI, right? And that's why it's transforming from this copyright use. It's just using numbers, right? You can't really copyright numbers, right? You want to copyright the whole thing, but again, it's just numbers. We're going to be moving into the next section. Yeah, Zion, yes. Yeah, it also, yeah, all that it is as well. If you render that, I'm not sure if geometry you can do that, but if you render that into an image at the end, then you can do the poisoning, right? The images for AI. Not sure how long that's going to last because AI, it understands, oh, this image will be poised. That means I gotta somehow do something called gradient, blur the image, so it actually eliminates all those pixels and so on. Now the third piece that we're going through here, it is how would you know if you use AI that you're stealing from somebody else, right? That's a pretty big question also. A lot of people that I know, some of them, they do not want to touch AI. They say, listen, no, because it's evil. No, because it's taking, work for my peers, my friends. Right? It is no different from when you were taking a screenshot from a movie, a photo from a movie, maybe ripping the whole movie, maybe downloading the movie, right? Using some sort of like BitTorrent to get a movie and then you don't pay $20 and so on. It's the same thing, right? If you do that, then you're basically committing this infringing into copyright. You can't steal that. AI, again, you have two options. One is saying, listen, I don't want to use AI never. The other one is like, listen, move on and understand how it works. Because believe me, you have no choice. You have to use it. And chances are is that you may be already using it without knowing. AI now, it is everywhere, right? It is, to me, I mentioned it before, it's a triumph from civilization. We should be very happy that this is coming to our world. It's pretty incredible to see that, right? We just got to prevent it from being used in an evil or negative way. So when OpenAI, which is the company that it wasn't the first one, but it was the company that kind of pushed the this wave, right, with ChatGPT. Before that was Google, which is the AI company for sure. They're incredible scientists at Google. You can see Google Maps and all that stuff. It's just incredible, right? So when OpenAI comes out, it's scraping everything, text, books, websites, crawling every single thing, and then just taking that to feed and to train the model. They were not really, at least from what we know, they were not that concerned to know what is the source of this, what is the source, how did you train that model, what websites did you visit, did you care about that, or did you just go like, whoosh, is there any citation on that? So that's back in 2022. Now there's more information on this. So I'll show you a couple of ideas on how to not take anybody's work, right? The simplest one, if you go to ChatGPT, because even in that you can break some rules, copyright infringement. So don't say, bring me an image like Studio Ghibli. Don't say that, because you're going to do it, right? It's kind of hard to not do that because you want something like anime style, and you say anime style, well, the same thing. You're taking from somebody else's idea. You say, well, let me upload my Van Gogh, right, or my Jack Vetriano or whoever. Then as soon as you upload that reference image, then AI is like, oh, look at these numbers. Let me just represent whatever they want with those numbers. So that's an easy one. The most technical one I want to show you to you. There's something called Hugging Face. Does anybody knows what this is, Hugging Face? Hugging Face, it is, so this is we call this a repo. It's a repository. It's like a container, right, of stuff. And this, what they do is that they have something called the AI models. Remember, a model, the simplest way to say that is like a person. It's like a brain, right? I mean, every time you go to your family, you have your own brain, your friends have their own brain. So this is the same thing. You go to ChatGPT, right? It's the same thing everywhere. If you go to VO from Google, Gemini, that's its own brain. So this, what you see on the screen, it's people developing these brains. So they scan data, right? And it's a pretty big deal. Look at that number. There's 2 million and almost 300 models. Look at that number. It's just incredible. And this site has been training models since 2022, I guess, I think. Don't quote me on that. But we go and say anime, right? It's going to try to find, okay, yeah, let me find these models. And then someone's doing that, right, on this. If you say, like the question in the chat was like 2D animation. If you say 2D animation, let me go slower here, it's 2D animation. Now it's going to find models for that, right, or 2D only. There you go, 2,000 models on that. And if you click on any of these ones, then you're going to see what the AI, that brain can give you. And this is called, text to image, right? There's right there. So what we're trying to enforce today, because there's more, I think there's more knowledge. People are also being a bit more compassionate about not just scraping the whole internet. So now you go to the model, and it has to disclose somewhere how this was trained, right? And if you go here, it says files and versions, right? It's going to tell you the README. And it's code, but it's going to tell you, listen, this is how this was trained. So that's one thing that you can do on your own, saying, if I use a certain model, and you may not know about this website, because it's pretty technical. It's very computer science heavy. But if you go to Adobe Firefly, right? That's a pretty common website. That's something that you would use, definitely. You can go to this one, right? You can go to Google, I think it's called Flow, the latest one, right? So if you go, let's say if you go to Adobe Firefly, just to keep it simple, then they would say, oh, we're using, for Firefly, we're using this model as an example, right? And then that's how you would know, okay, now these guys are taking images from somewhere. Are they disclosing that? Yes, no. So this is where you come in with your responsibility, right? I mean, if you, obviously, if you care about this, if I look for 3D, which is the other question, it's a lot of 3D stuff that is really going on, right? And it tells you right here. So this is how SAM 3D was trained, right? This is the team, this is the people who's using it, and so on, right? So this would be important to understand. How do you not really take a model from a different artist, right? If you care about that, this is the research that you have to be doing, right? Again, pretty incredible that they have this. I mean, just you can browse that website and see it is. If you look at into any of these models, let me just find one random, like just like comic. I'm gonna go for comic, right? Look at that, all the comic models that you're gonna find right here, and tells you there's 8,000 downloads from this one just this month. So there's a lot of people using that. That's my point. And this is not even close. We've seen 1 million downloads per week, 4 million downloads per week, right? So there's people using these models on the computer science side, and also on the Firefly and all the other models. So these guys, even if you go to Kling, you guys have seen Kling? I'm guessing Kling AI. So this one, let me go to this one. So this, oops, no, sorry, not. Well, that's also a good example. So this one, look at that. So this one tells you, okay, what am I using? Kling 2.5, right? So you may want to be doing some digging into, okay, how is this model being trained? And let me pull the other one. You see that Nano Banana? That's one of the latest models. Yeah, this one, but I want to click on that. So again, these ones, like all these like different interfaces, they're using the brain from the other models, right? And it would tell you what models are we using. There's always a menu that says I'm using ChatGPT 4 or 5, or you're going to use VEO, I'm going to use something, right? From image to video, mission control. Typically, the free ones are the ones that are right here. There you go. So this one, look at that. So if you do a bit of digging, then you would know, okay, how are these trained, right? If you know Kling, Kling is specifically for images, like sequences, movies, essentially. So what do you think they're scanning? They're scanning movies, right? I don't know them, but to train on movies, you have to scan with movies, right? So keep that in mind. So that's how you know how do models get trained. Remember, just like little children, you have to make them watch films and films for hours, and use all those NVIDIA chips and whatnot, right? So this is how you respect the copyright in AI use. It is coming much more, I guess, to the surface now that we need to know, because there's a lot of people that are being, posting all these things. So now you know one more thing, which is great, right? Now let's do a little thing together here. We're gonna have a little quiz, and you guys can type the answers on the chat as we close the oops. Oh my gosh. Okay, where's my quiz? Oh my gosh, did I change the link? Quiz. Quiz, 1 sec. Oh, there you go. Good. Okay. Let me zoom in. And then maybe there you go. Okay, so let's recap, and then you guys can type the answers on the chat. Read the question. What is transformative work, right? What's something that you would say, well, that's what it means to be transforming the original piece, and then you're not infringing copyright anymore, right? Is it the number one, an exact copy from the other artist image? Number two is a new expression or meaning to the original piece. Number three, the only simplistically, if you make a color change, is that enough to transform the work, right? Or the last one, downloading and reposting work without credit. Which one is it? Number two, there you go. Yeah, so let's go with this one. Right, how to protect the artwork, that's also important. Right, you have false or true on these ones. If you add a watermark, yeah, and then just to be clear, if you say watermark example, right, it looks like something like this. You see how it says copyright, this one? So that would be a watermark. So the question is, close this one, go there. Is that enough? Would the AI be able or not be able to do it, right? Right, so false or true, right? You need to make, remember, when you see this type of situation, it's almost like piracy, right? When you, again, if somebody goes with a camcorder to the movie theater like in the old days, or somebody's ripping a DVD from the old days, or somebody going to BitTorrent, or somebody has like a website that has all this access, right? That's piracy, and it's not really that different from what we have here. What we have found is that you can't really stop it at 100%, but you can make it more difficult, right? For the person, the vehicle who's doing that, or in this case, AI. So let's say false, because that's what you guys are saying. This one, again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So this is like, if you want to share your art on your website, right, but prevent it from being scanned or training AI, how can you do it? One is like you upload high resolutions, files with no restrictions. You say do not train, or you say allow downloads for everybody, or disable right click and watermarks, right? Yeah, so it's a pretty easy one. There's something called, this is pretty technical, but there's a file called robots.txt in every single website. You might have not seen it in your life, but this one right here, if you put that on the website, it tells the chatbots and the Googles from, this is not new, this is maybe from the 70s, 80s, right? If you say that, do not scan the website, that stops Google from crawling your data, right? And it tells you right here, it stops them. Right, so the robot goes in, says, well, this one, robots text, can I, yeah, it says allow, yes, allow, no. So that would be something similar to this one. If you add, do not train metadata, right? The word meta, right, it basically means origin. That's the origin. So if you say all the way at the bottom, you say do not train, right? That would help. Number 4. So there's 2 more. Right? What's an example of respecting others' copyrights? You have uploading fan art into an AI, training on AI, on images, right? And Creative Commons license, that's an important distinction, right? Creative Commons license, that means you allow certain use, right? Yeah. Ignoring the opt-out request. Yeah, so people say too. There you go. And then the last one. Okay, here's a scenario. If you find a concept sketch online and you like to use it as a reference in your next project, what would you do first? Download. Check the copyright terms. Assume that anything on the internet is free to use. Remove the artist signature, right? There you go. So I mean, you can do whatever you want. If you the age of contacting the artist is that sometimes you flag it, right? They would say no, and you really want to use it, but you can't use it anymore because now they know that you exist, right? It is the right way of doing it, but a lot of people don't do that. Right? A lot of people use images from the internet. I was one of them until I got a fine from doing that. Right? So now let's submit the quiz and let's review the answer. Let's go back to the top. So we have the first one is fine, right? Right, that's a big one. That's a big one. So it's a controversial topic, but this is the right answer. Okay, this one was wrong. So even if you put a little watermark like this one right there, then this is tricking. It's basically switching the numbers, right? So if you do that here, then the AI wouldn't know, okay, that's a mountain. No, that's not a mountain. What is this? I don't know. That's a number. What is this number? It went from like 26 to 300. So why? So the AI would not be able to do that. It doesn't know. You see that T that it has a bit of opacity and then it has the edge of that little like mountain. So the AI wouldn't know. Do you know because we're humans, obviously. But AI, so that means only with that watermark, the AI would like, okay, what is this? So that's an easy way for you guys to do it. A little watermark somewhere just to poise those numbers if you alter them a little bit. But this one, yeah, so you can metadata, remember metadata like that property file, or use Glaze or Nightshade. They're free to use. I haven't used them myself, but now download them. Add a bit of noise. If you sell your artwork on like a Shopify online store or Instagram, you promote it, then the AI would be so confused about that. Not sure how long that's going to last, but you can try it for sure. This one's right. You guys got it right. Awesome. Yeah. So Creative Commons, even if you look for images like in Google, this would tell you if you look for tools, we go images, you go here, it says right here, tools, right? And there's something called usage rights. And look at this one, Creative Commons. So that basically means that whoever took that photo or drew that logo or whatnot, you can flag it as Creative Commons, right? But there's not that many. You look at that. And if you remove that, then you're going to have a lot more. So it's been kind of recent that Google has this images maybe subject to copyrights. Recent, like in the last, I'd say 7 or years, but Google has been out there for a while, but now they're saying, well, we don't know, but you should know, right? That's pretty important for you to make the decision. And the last one, right? This is the correct way of doing things. Like you ask for permission. I'm gonna use your soundtrack, your music, your images, your style, right? And then you can use it. But I'm thinking that's why you have a lot of websites that have. I'm gonna show you one. So like this one's like Motion. We use it here at Vana, so Motion Array, right? That so a lot of artists now they work, they draw, they animate, and they upload their work here. And then you pay a subscription and you get a license, right? It's been, I'm happy to see that there's a lot more protection on websites that are, you can do some work and then upload it and then sell it for a number of times. And then you get your Creative Commons license or your copyright right there, which is great. Anyhow, so this is the end. There you go. You got 4 out of 5. Not bad, not bad. Pretty cool stuff. So any questions, anyone? Yeah, there's websites uploaded free. Yeah, there's one more. One that I've seen on Splash. This one's also a pretty good one. It's mostly for photos, right? But now these are artists that they want to have, like an outlet, like a discovery platform that you say, who is this person? And they give you the option. You can download it for free, but they say, please just somewhere here it says, please just do some attribution. That means this person, Kevin Mueller, right? He's promoting himself. So he's like, yeah, if you download it, says, well, if you could just put a little note somewhere that here's my name and I took this photo, would be great, right? Without really charging any money, which is awesome. So there's a lot more websites like this ones. Animation wise, yeah, there's a lot more websites also selling models, selling rigs, animated sprites, and so on. So there's a lot more coming on this, which is pretty awesome. It's the new gig economy for sure. All right. So there's 2 more courses on AI. We can leave that for one. There's 2 or 3 more that we're thinking about giving to the community so they understand what this is. The link for this one, let me go back so you can have it and then really study and get the links. I'm going to put it on the chat box. All right, so now you understand from an artist point of view, you understand, okay, how's the AI trained, how it looks at numbers, why does it get confused, right? It's not that it can't get hands, right? But if you look at people, right? If AI is, imagine that you're AI, and you look at people and you're like, okay, let me scan these guys. There's really not that many hands, right? So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 1 out of 14 images, right? This one, there's 1 more, but look at that 1, 2, 3 image, hands. So there's a lot of images and there's no hands, right? It's not that AI is not capable, but it is that the sources of the training, you can see it, there's not that many hands. Right, but again, if they're determined, like these companies like Google Flow and VEO and Firefly and OpenAI, then they can train them, right? Just like a little kid. Oh, that's a great question. Can AI generated artwork be copyrighted? Yeah, what do you guys think? Yeah, so it's all debatable, Zane. The question would be why not, right? And it's pretty debatable. And you can produce something with AI, And there's a lot of like AI. Look at this one. I have friends that are doing AI photo or some AI artwork. Look at this artwork competition, right? And they're everywhere. They're in France and all these like super high visibility websites and festivals. And they tell you like this one, for example, they tell you the only submissions that are accepted, they have to be done with AI. You can't don't touch them with your hands. So you're generating all these things. And at the end, they copyright it because that's a prompt. That's something that they did, and now they copyright it, right? Uh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Zion, you also got a point. So all these things, it's important to know. That's why they have lawyers for these situations. Um, yeah. Anyhow, so we can leave it like that. It's a big thing, but awesome. So let's close the session, everyone. Thanks for coming to the AI workshop. You guys have the link. Review it. Get on the open source links. Do the quiz again if you want. Share with your friends and so on. And then we'll keep you informed for the next one. Thank you. Have an awesome Tuesday. Bye bye.